size, room-sized pieces in which I actually allow the bloom activity to incorporate right up into the wall and the ceilings and so on. So if you're to Google the work, you would actually see that this is actually quite a small piece for me. But nonetheless, an important series for me. It was not only looking at the environment and lushness underwater and on forest floor and rock outcroppings, but also looking at Persian rugs and moving towards looking at textiles to inform also what botanical motif looks like from history. And so Persian rugs is and also Islamic ceramics. I've looked at both botanical motifs from ceramics and rugs. And looking at that culture from 1500 AD, the Ottoman Empire commissioned lush, beautiful objects for domestic space. And so interesting enough, during that time in Turkey and in that location, it was very desert and arid. And all of their items were very lush. So I've been looking at both nature and cultural objects. So this is from a rug series. I've done four rug pieces or rug-inspired pieces by looking at that Persian rug series. A lot of people ask me about process, so I thought I should probably touch on that because it's sometimes a bit of a mystery in terms of what you're looking at. I mostly work in porcelain and handmade paper. I have expertise in both of those areas. Traditional trained ceramicist, and as well as I did 2 years training as with a paper maker. And always saw those materials as separate entities until my conceptual language kept pushing me to think about the combination of the two by looking at how species and how nature evolves. And as you know, birds making nests, it's a combination of earth material and fiber. And so it made logical sense to me to start really investigating the technical capability of mixing the materials, but also the conceptual stretch and what I could experience with that. So what you're seeing is a variety of bloom petal forms that are all individually made, and that's indicative of what I do. I research, when the invitation comes to me, I'll research that museum, that location. I'll also tap into my own life experience in terms of what I'm experiencing, kind of pair that, look at the cultural references, and then set out by making a floor plan in the studio, actually, laying it out, and then making thousands and thousands of parts. So I'm a project maker that takes 8 or 9 months to make, so they're big kind of marathon projects for me. So lots and lots of parts. So you're seeing some things that are predominantly porcelain with a bit of handmade paper. So I'm changing proportions depending on the quality of the petal form. And as you can imagine, a fired ceramic part gives a hard edge. So I'm taking advantage of a hard edge that way. And then some of the parts, and I'll just indicate when you're looking at the pink, all the pinks, that's predominantly handmade paper. And using a lot of my information in terms of how species use information, the vernacular materials that are from location. So I'm actually collecting from my garden as well as observing from my garden. I'm growing flax. And flax is a wonderful plant that probably, as you know, once it's been processed, makes linen. And so I'm growing flax and I'm processing flax as well as other materials. It's boiled, it's beaten, traditional papermaker style, beaten in a beater into a pulp mixture. And then once that pulp mixture, I have lots of choices, whether I'm spraying it in large sheets, whether I'm pulling it in sheets and making specific petal forms, as well as mixing it in with my porcelain. So actually you're seeing some porcelain paper clay, a mixture of the two, as well as handmade paper. Some of the fired elements are literally colored through natural oxides from the earth and then loaded in a kiln and fired. So all the hard edges that you're seeing are fired. All the soft edges that you're seeing are paper clay non-fired. And all the non-fired elements I mix with an adhesive so that it dries very hard. And my studio, just to give you a visualization, you would see taped markings on the floor and then about 50 or 60 laundry baskets filled with parts. And it takes me months and months to build those parts, and then I will then assemble. And in this case, I assembled 3 particular frame forms. I'm also harvesting willow from my property. So the willow is just simple woodworking. I'm just making a substructure. So underneath all this balloon is a grid. 3 different parts that were shipped separately to the museum and then slid together so the seam disappears. And within the grid, I'm then taking individual parts, dipping it into the mixture of the paper and the clay with the adhesive, and building and building and building. And in this case, really interested in kind of the prolificness, the intensity of the bloom, allowing the substructure to sort of disappear. In other installations, it's been very much about allowing that substructure to show and to allow blooms to be aware of accommodation of each other. In this case, it was total collaboration and total thriving and flourishing. So that's really kind of conceptually what this piece is all about. I guess I might also mention that if not growing the material for the handmade paper, I'm also upcycling. So just from thrift stores, I'm going to look for good linen or cotton fibers, so just ripped table linens or cotton clothing or flannel shirts. Those all get cut in squares, boiled, and then beaten into the paper maker's beater into a pulp, and then utilized with porcelain.
And I think you mentioned too that you don't add any color, so whatever color the clothing is, it comes out.
Yeah, I have baskets of different colors of clothing and do my color blends from the upcycling process.